Hey guys, and welcome back to another episode of Food School Smarter, Stronger, Leaner podcast on a mission to inspire a world where food makes us better. How did you enjoy our gut health episode yesterday, guys? If you didn't listen to that one yet, please do, because as you learn in this episode, our gut health is our whole body health. It affects every aspect of our health. And we only now start to understand the complexity of our gut microbiome, of all the trillions of organisms that live there, that outnumber our human cells, that are so diverse and that are so unique, like our fingerprints. Our gut microbiome is maybe even more unique than our fingerprints, and changes in that microbiome that can be affected by our diet, of course, but also by our lifestyle. So changes to that microbiome will affect every single aspect of your health and well-being. How much energy you have, how much nutrients you absorb from your foods, how much happiness and well-being you experience in your life. They are that powerful, those bugs in our gut, about 2 kilos or 4 pounds of them. So we talked about the basics of supporting our gut health briefly yesterday, but today and for the rest of the week, and I'm also reading a fascinating book about fungi in our gut and how those creatures are also quite important for our gut health, not just our gut bacteria. So that book is going to be next week. This week we are talking in detail, so it's really solid in your head, guys, so you really know how to practice those. We are talking in details till the end of this week about different foods and eating practices that help us to improve our gut health and improve our overall health through it, and also to maintain a healthy gut once you have it, so you never experience a lot of trouble with your gut. We will be talking about resistant starch, what it is, why it matters, how it works, and where we can eat it. I'll share with you some of my best, most favorite foods, the simplest ways of eating that resistant starch, or prebiotic foods or probiotic foods. So we'll talk in details about prebiotics, probiotics, not about supplements, because it's still questionable how much of our supplements make it into our gut through our digestive system, actually. We'll talk a little bit more about fats, beneficial for our guts and not beneficial for our guts or for anything in nature, as far as I know. We'll talk about bad guys, what compromises our gut balance a lot, what feeds the bad guys and that then outnumber our good guys that support our health. So this is what we are talking about till the end of the week. So stay tuned, guys, because our gut health is important. Again, the number of organisms living just in our gut, I'm not even talking about our skin and other places where our bacteria and microbes live, they live everywhere. So till the end of this week, sometimes I'm forgetting what I'm talking about before. My thoughts are all over the place sometimes. But anyhow, guys, gut health, again, it is important for every single aspect of our health and our well-being. So today is resistant starch. What is resistant starch? Well, you know what starch is? It's kind of like a carbohydrate that have those longer molecules that takes a little bit more time to digest from natural foods, to break down into simple sugars, so like glucose that we can use then for energy. But those starchy molecules, they're not all the same. Some of them are really not the same when it comes to our human digestion. So those are resistant starches. So their molecules are just a little bit more different, and when it comes to our digestion, they cannot be digested by our stomach, by our digestive organs, except they can be fermented in our large colon by the bacteria that lives there. And so what happens when those bacteria ferment those starches? By the way, guys, for those bacteria, these starches are the best foods. Well, when those bacteria ferment those resistant starches, they create short chain fatty acids besides feeding themselves on the byproducts of that fermentation. They create short chain fatty acids that our body can use for energy, but also specifically are healing for our gut cells in our large colon, that helps to heal, to seal, to make that large colon really robust part of our system. It helps to absorb us more nutrients. It helps to remove toxic substances much better. I mean, the science is still emerging, but we do know quite a lot. We do know that by eating, fermenting that resistant starch, our gut bacteria produces short chain fatty acids. And also by eating that starch, by the processes of fermentation, we do absorb some of that starch as calories, but only about half or less, depending on your digestive system, on your gut bacteria. So resistant starch is a kind of starch found in some foods in certain amounts that resist our digestion but is fermented by bacteria in our large colon. And so those bacteria produce short chain fatty acids that you don't need to remember the name, but you need to remember that those short chain fatty acids, they stimulate blood flow to our colon. They increase nutrient circulation, nutrient absorption, especially minerals like calcium. They inhibit the growth of pathogenic bacteria, and there are many in our foods and in our colon and in our body in general. Helps us, again, absorb minerals and detoxify toxic compounds that we could be absorbing from different foods and different substances that somehow end up in our body. So, potential benefits of resistant starch through different mechanisms are many, and again, the research is still going on and it's far from over. So improved blood fats, eating resistant starch, foods rich in resistant starch can help us to improve our cholesterol. So it's not the eggs that you're eating, maybe you just need to eat more resistant starch from natural foods. Resistant starch, it helps to inhibit through short chain fatty acids breakdown of carbohydrates in the liver, and that can increase utilization of your own fats for energy. Better satiety. So resistant starch can help us to feel full. It can trigger release of certain hormones that reduce our hunger. Now, there are many of those hormones, but what I can tell you from personal story, guys, the first time after many years, because I was so afraid of lectins and indigestion and gas, and so, I didn't eat beans for quite a while, and beans are one of the foods that are high in resistant starch. So I ate a meal of canned beans with non-starchy vegetables, broccoli, some salad, greens. Before that, I ate fruit, then I waited to combine my foods well, and then I ate more vegetables and a whole can, 200 grams or about 6-7 ounces of white beans. So I ate that meal, and the totality of my calories was somewhere around 1100 calories. It's not a lot, especially if you are active, it's not a lot. But I just felt not hungry till the end of the day, even though I had that lunch about 3 p.m. I finished, and then I just didn't feel like eating, like literally didn't feel like it. It's not because I wanted to stay on a low-caloric diet or anything. No, I just didn't feel like eating. And that meal, it supplied quite a lot of protein, about 38 grams of plant-based protein, and a lot of course, minerals and fiber and antioxidants and vitamins. But again, I did not feel hunger at all, and that was really surprising. And I felt kind of, like really full of energy and warm. And as the research show, resistant starch might indeed increase metabolism and promote more heat in the body, so to speak. So the body starts to burn more fuels for some reason. Anyhow, it worked, and as studies show, it works for a lot of people eating resistant starch for satiety. Better insulin sensitivity. Now, a lot of foods with resistant starch are higher in carbs, but if that food has more resistant starch, it actually will help your blood sugar to stay stable. Well, first of all, those foods with a lot of resistant starch, they have a lot of fiber, and that alone gonna slow down the digestion and release of fuels and sugars into our bloodstream, and that will slow down the release of insulin. Plus, a lot of resistant starch is not even digested, so the insulin response is gonna be diminished and delayed, and resistant starch also helps again to utilize fats for fuel, so that might be another reason why our insulin is much lower. Then improved digestion, guys. Yeah, digestion flows so smoothly, like the next morning you go so regularly and so smoothly, then you'll be really surprised. Doesn't matter like how well you think your digestive system is working right now, if you are not eating resistant starch, it just might get a lot better. Better body composition. Since the resistant starch has less energy than other starches, but it helps us to stay really full, consuming foods in resistant starch help us to eat less, and that helps us to maintain healthy weight, to lose weight without counting anything or too much struggle and hunger. It keeps us hydrated because it helps to stabilize bowel movements, and if you are having loose stools or having other troubles that causes you to lose a lot of water through your colon, then resistant starch just might help with that. And improved immunity. That is also really important right now, guys. A lot of our immune power relies on our digestion, on our foods, and on the bacteria that lives in our gut. They say like 90% of immune system is in our gut. I don't know how they calculated that, but it seems the more those resistant starches and fibers I eat, the better my immune system works. And that doesn't just mean to protect you from some bacteria or viruses. What it actually also means is that helps you to balance out those autoimmune responses or sensitivities to foods that are basically, or allergic reactions to foods that are basically your immune system is not being really well balanced and well tuned, and so it overreacts to things in foods, to different proteins or the compounds that are actually beneficial or benign, and we shouldn't have immune response to that, or we shouldn't attack our own body of certain compounds in our foods. And so resistant starch, it seems to help with that kind of bacterial balance, immunity, that also helps to reduce those autoimmune reactions, allergic reactions, and sensitivities. So where is resistant starch is found, right? Well, one food you know already, beans. But also, beans, legumes, some starchy fruit and vegetables, some whole grains, some types of cooked and cooled foods like potatoes and rice. So let's get into details a little bit more. So for example, when it comes to beans, like guys, how much of resistant starch you need? Well, they say people today eat about 3-9 grams, and that, guys, I think is a good estimation. Most people, especially eating a lot of processed foods, eat none. 3-9 grams, you'll be likely to eat that. They say that in developing countries where people eat more natural foods, they eat up to 30-40 grams of resistant starch only. So they say that more probably not too good because too much fiber can also trigger some reactions. But anyhow, guys, so you need to have some. That's what we can all tell you. So beans. White beans have the most resistant starch per 4 ounces, 100 grams. That's the unit of measurement we're going to use today. So white beans in cans or cooked properly using pressure cooker would have about 5 grams of resistant starch. Lentils are also quite high, about 4 grams, and then chickpeas and peas would have about 3 grams, 3-4, and then kidney beans would have about the same. So those are the highest in resistant starch beans. Bananas actually would also have quite a lot. The greener, the more resistant starch, of course. So approximately 100 grams of banana would give you about 3-4 grams of resistant starch. Again, the greener, the more you're gonna get. Then when it comes to cooked and cooled foods, for example, if we cook yams or potatoes or rice, and then we cool them and eat them cool, then the amount of resistant starch will be much higher, whereas in just simple cooked potatoes it might be close to 0. So when we cook and cool potatoes, again 3-4 ounces, 100 grams, it's about 3 grams of resistant starch. Well, it's cooked, and cooked and cooled, I'm just now reading the database appropriately. In cooked and cooled potatoes, you're gonna get about 7 grams of resistant starch compared to just cooked, where it's about 3 grams. So that increases dramatically the amount of resistant starch. So basically, you have to cook your potatoes, you have to cool them. The same happens to rice or yams. So cook, cool them, and eat them cold, because if you reheat them, you're gonna again destroy some of that resistant starch. So it is sensitive to temperature, guys. Just remember that the more you cook the food with resistant starch, the more of that resistant starch it loses. But when it comes to, for example, beans and peas and lentils, you can't eat them raw. You actually need to cook them with a pressure cooker, cook them really well to destroy a lot of stuff, to even make them digestible. So pressure cooking is the best for beans. Again, white beans, lentils are the highest, a little bit lower, chickpeas, peas, kidney beans. Grain that is the highest in resistant starch is oats. So oats, guys, depending on the way they were processed, they might have up to 10 grams of resistant starch, or they might have half of that if they are highly processed, maybe even closer to none if they really highly processed. But when they're still rolled or still cut, there are so many names for oats these days. So the less processed your oats are, the more resistant starch they're gonna have. So again, remember, beans, just don't remember to pressure cook them, or if you buy them in cans like I do, make sure to once check with the brand that you're buying that they do pressure cook them. You can even call them up and ask them, guys, like, I'm interested in improving my gut health, and I am curious how you cook your beans. So what do you do with them? Do you cook them under pressure or not? And they will know that. They will have the answer for that. And once you know that they were pressure cooked, buy them safely. Just make sure there are no added sugars, no added preservatives. The beans that I buy, they have beans, water, and salt in their ingredient list. And if you don't get, that clean ingredient list and it has some tomato sauce, then just wash them in some sort of strainer. That also works. It's probably not going to remove 100% of it, but most of it for sure. And that way you can reduce the amount of sodium in those canned beans a lot. So beans, then bananas, the greener, the more resistant starch they would have. Oats are high in resistant starch. The less processed they are, the more resistant starch there is. And cooking and cooling your yams, potatoes, and your rice would more than double, almost triple the amount of resistant starch in those foods. So eat some resistant starch, guys. Even if you are on a low-carb diet, don't eat those fancy foods and snacks with some weird sweeteners that still have some carbs in them and trying to count net carbs. Instead, eat some beans that are highly beneficial for our gut. And most of that starch will feed our gut bacteria. It's not going to even affect your blood sugar or your blood glucose or, the count of ketones you have. So yeah, guys. Even if you're on low carb, even if you're on keto, try some of those resistant starch foods. Especially, I recommend to go for pressure cooked white beans. I recommend to go for cooked and cooled yams. And I do recommend to eat some oats once in a while if you are into oats. So that's it for today, guys. Here's your resistant starch. Get some and feed your gut bacteria so they ferment it and produce some short-chain fatty acid that will heal your colon. Because also, guys, a lot of you experiencing problems with your gut health, sensitivities, autoimmune conditions. It happens because your gut is kind of leaky, the lining of the gut is not maintained well, and big part of it is you're not feeding that gut bacteria what they love the most, that those resistant starches, for example. So go get some today or as soon as possible, and your gut bugs will thank you with a lot of health, energy, and much less troubles with your foods. Guys, thank you for tuning in. Thank you for listening. Go share this episode with one another person who might be just as equally excited about learning more about resistant starch and feeding our gut bacteria that outnumber our human cells 10 to 1 at least. So go share this episode, learn together, shop for resistant starch together, eat that resistant starch together. Together is always more fun, especially now with this social isolation and whatever. So eat some resistant starch, share this episode, eat some resistant starch together, and as usual, guys, thank you for tuning in, and till next time, eat better daily.